start with the ownership and accountability. You know, I preach that to the players, and so I have to take responsibility for my part in it.
Poke bears. I don't respect no one until they come and give me 40.
I think it's a good thing that they're playing a little bit more through him. I think that's going to benefit the whole, I'm going to say, organization. You know.
In the aftermath of the post-James Harden era, the Houston Rockets became a rudderless franchise. After 8 consecutive trips to the playoffs, Houston instantly became a lottery team. High draft picks allowed them to stockpile young, valuable talent, but the Rockets struggled to translate their development into wins. Houston has finished with the worst record in the Western Conference in each of the past 3 seasons, failing to win more than 22 games in a season over that span. The Houston Rockets seem to be spinning their wheels, putting all of their resources towards a rebuild with frighteningly little to show for it. But this season has been different. Internal improvement, off-season signings, and a brand new coach have created the perfect storm for the Houston Rockets to show legitimate improvement. The season is young, but Houston already looks better than they have at any point during the last 3 seasons. This franchise has the potential to not just return to the playoffs this season, but more importantly, sustain their success for years to come. But how? And how did they do it so quickly? Well, before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Today's video is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time built a ticket marketplace that makes it faster and easier to get into your favorite events at a moment's notice. Game Time provides the premier marketplace for last-minute tickets to the most popular events in sports, music, and theater in more than 60 cities across the US and Canada, eliminating the need for printing and building a better way to access the best live experiences right from your phone. My personal favorite feature of Game Time is the fact that they show you the price that you're paying for the tickets up front before you actually buy the tickets, and there's no hidden fees, and the fact that you can preview your seats before actually purchasing a ticket for those seats. How many times have you actually bought seats to an event and then get there and you end up being blocked or not having a good view of the event? Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And most ticketing apps do this sleazy thing where they hide the actual value of a ticket and you get a bunch of hidden fees at the end. But with Game Time, you get all-in ticket prices to show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. They have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. Game Time is the place to find last-minute seats. And right now they're hooking up my subscribers fat. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use my promo code TheFlightMike for $20 off of your first purchase. And thank you, Game Time, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Houston Rockets 2023 offseason began right as their season concluded. After a 3rd straight season in the Western Conference basement, the Houston Rockets decided to make a significant coaching change. On the last day of the regular season, Houston declined the option on head coach Stephen Silas's contract, ending his stewardship of their aimless rebuild. Or maybe he just fulfilled his purpose as the team's tank commander, which is what I'm leaning towards. With a 59-117 record across 3 seasons, the organization decided a new voice would be needed to get their team back on track. A little more than 2 weeks later, the Rockets got their guy. The Houston Rockets hired the highly controversial Ime Udoka to be their next head coach less than 1 year after leading the Boston Celtics to the 2022 NBA Finals. The move was controversial after the Celtics suspended him for a year, just days before training camp after multiple team policy violations. More details emerged that revealed that Udoka had an improper relationship with a female staffer and used crude language towards her prior to the affair. And while Boston didn't want to commit to firing Ime Udoka, they named Joe Mazzulla their permanent head coach, and Ime Udoka would unofficially resign in the middle of the season. And while Udoka proved himself to be an effective coach in Boston on the court, Houston had to answer right off the bat why they would make this hiring, considering his behavior off of the court. Not to mention that Udoka had to explain why the Rockets should still hire him.
That time off and really a full understanding of how many people you impact by a poor decision. That's where you start with the ownership and accountability. You know, I preach that to the players, and so I have to take responsibility for my part in it.
We're a forgiving society, and everybody makes mistakes, and some things maybe we shouldn't forgive people for, but I think what happened in his personal situation is definitely something we forgive for. And I discussed it with the president of my organization, who is a woman, and she was very comfortable with the situation. And the NBA told me that they felt very comfortable with Ime becoming the coach of the Houston Rockets. And so that made me feel really good after a lengthy conversation with them.
Now that they had their coach, the next important phase for Houston's offseason was the NBA draft lottery. Since the Rockets had one of the league's 3 worst records, they had a 14% chance to land the top pick. That tied them with the Pistons and the Spurs for the best odds at getting the #1 overall pick. The lottery essentially decided who would get French phenom and generational prospect Victor Wembanyama. Now, Houston had a chance to get him after cracking the top 4 coming out of the lottery's commercial break, but instead of getting the top pick, the Rockets landed in what was possibly their worst case scenario. Houston fell to the 4th pick, while in-state rival San Antonio ended up with the #1 overall pick, guaranteeing 4 matchups a year with a young superstar in their own state. The Rockets still ended up with a talented prospect, drafting Amen Thompson from Overtime Elite with the 4th pick. Houston had another first-round selection and took Villanova's Cam Whitmore with the 20th overall pick. Now, what's fantastic about this is Whitmore was expected to be a lottery pick, but due to concerns over his medical history and previous injuries, teams would pass on him. So the Rockets didn't get Victor Wembanyama, but Houston got 2 players who they believe can develop and help them compete in the long term. Armed with a pair of prospects to add to their young core, the Rockets turned their focus towards free agency. One notable advantage that the Rockets had entering this offseason was their cap space situation. That and no state income tax. Houston entered free agency with nearly $60 million in cap space, about $16 million more than the next closest team. They were also one of only 7 teams who were below the salary cap. However, there were a couple of reasons why their cap space may not have even been such a big advantage. First off, the free agent class didn't really feature many big names beyond Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Draymond Green, who were all expected to stay with their respective teams. Although there were rumors of a Harden-Houston reunion, he ended up with another trade saga after opting into his player option and demanding a trade from the Philadelphia 76ers. Some of the other names included are Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Kuzma, and Jakob Poeltl. These are all remarkable players, many with a championship pedigree, but nobody would confuse any of them with bona fide superstars. Plus, the Rockets hadn't really shown much progress to indicate that they were ready to compete for the playoffs, much less a championship. And yet, the Rockets struck fast. In one of the first free agency signings of the summer, Houston signed point guard Fred VanVleet to a 3-year deal worth $130 million. In order to get VanVleet, the Rockets had to give him a max contract worth over $40 million annually and the highest average salary from any free agent signing in 2023. VanVleet had spent all 7 of his seasons in Toronto and helped the Raptors win a championship in 2019. He entered the league as an undrafted free agent after starring at Wichita State, which pushed him throughout his entire career. VanVleet became just the 5th undrafted All-Star ever before earning the largest contract ever for an undrafted player. Houston hoped signing him could help the young guards on the team, most notably Jalen Green. Now, Jalen Green was drafted 2nd overall in the 2021 NBA draft and flashed plenty of talent over his first 2 seasons. He put up big scoring numbers, but not efficiently, and looked like a good stats but bad team player rather than a true franchise cornerstone. My initial assessment on Jalen Green was he was essentially prime J.R. Smith plus, a streaky, high volume, low efficiency scorer that looked great in terms of basic statistics, but whenever you got to advanced analytics, they told a different story. But the Rockets really focused on putting Jalen Green in the best position to succeed, and believed that the benefits of playing alongside Fred VanVleet would help Green fully realize his potential. With oodles of cap space still available to them, the Rockets went out and made another big splash after signing VanVleet. Houston signed the highly controversial Dillon Brooks to a 4-year contract worth $80 million after spending his first 6 seasons in Memphis. Brooks was coming off of an abysmal playoff series against the Lakers in which he averaged more field goal attempts than points, and he made waves off of the court when he was asked about trash talking with LeBron during Game 2.
Poke Bears. I don't respect no one until they come and give me 40.
While LeBron didn't end up giving Brooks 40, the Lakers handled Memphis in 6 games, which ended up being Brooks' final games in Memphis. He was fined $25,000 by the league after not speaking with the media after Memphis' final 3 losses, and the Grizzlies quite literally told Brooks in their exit interview that he would not be brought back under any circumstances. Dillon Brooks essentially became the scapegoat for Memphis' failures. They became tired of his antics and his inefficient offense, and determining that the all-defensive wing was no longer worth the headache. Brooks had earned over 50 technical fouls, been suspended for 4 games, and fined over $500,000 in his career. But as the old adage says, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And in this case, the Houston Rockets still went all in on Dillon Brooks, giving him a deal that would pay him about $20 million a year as they look to change their defensive culture. Dillon Brooks had a productive season balling out for Team Canada during the FIBA Basketball World Cup, dropping 39 points on Team USA, the most ever for a Canadian during a FIBA World Cup game, as Canada won their first medal ever, taking home bronze. The Rockets had to feel good about their contract as they dismissed any concerns over their new wing's volatile reputation. Houston also signed center Jock Landale to a 4-year, $32 million deal, which is a huge deal for a player who doesn't have a lot of career experience or production to his name. However, there's no guaranteed money after the first year, which means Houston could cut bait if their high upside big man doesn't really pan out. And to round out their free agency, the Rockets added guard Aaron Holiday and signed veteran forward Jeff Green, which technically brings another champion into their locker room after the 15-year veteran helped the Nuggets win a championship earlier in June. So the Rockets definitely went all in during their offseason. How did it pan out? Well, when the season actually started, early results were a little rough. The Rockets were never really in their first game and lost by 30 on the road against Orlando, but there were a few bright spots. They lost their second game in San Antonio as Victor Wembanyama earned his first career win in overtime, and after they would lose their home opener to the Warriors. The Rockets were 0-3, their second straight year where they lost their first 3 games. After all the new signings and draft picks, Houston seemed to be right back to where they were last year. But in an odd scheduling quirk, the Rockets stayed at home as part of an early 7-game homestand. A balanced scoring night from the starters helped propel them to their first win of the season over the Charlotte Hornets. A big fourth quarter from Dillon Brooks helped them close out the Sacramento Kings before dominating them again 2 nights later. This is the Sacramento Kings that took the Golden State Warriors to 7 games in last year's playoffs. And here are the Houston Rockets dominating them twice in a row. In their next game, they would win in another blowout over the Los Angeles Lakers, which did include some more antics between Dillon Brooks and LeBron James. Even during a timeout, Brooks never left LeBron's side, and the game was essentially over after the third quarter. They finally won a tight game, holding off the New Orleans Pelicans before truly stunning the basketball world. The Rockets knocked off the defending champion Denver Nuggets, making it their 6th win in a row in a game that put the NBA on notice to one player in particular. There's one man that we forgot to mention in the 2021 NBA draft, and that's 16th overall pick Alperen Sengun, which was a prospect with huge offensive potential. Over his first 2 seasons, he did flash a lot of skill, but this season, Alperen Sengun has been on a different level. Sengun has been the team's leading scorer and rebounder, and he's also second on the team in assists. His style of play has drawn endless comparisons to Nikola Jokic, who has high praise for the Turkish big man after their matchup.
I think it's a good thing that they're playing a little bit more through him. I think that's going to benefit the whole, I'm going to say, organization. He's the guy who's not selfish. He wants to play for the team and he wants to pass and kind of move the whole team is going to move when the ball is in his hands. So he played really good today.
With Sengun playing like an all-star and fellow first-round picks Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and Jalen Green all contributing to winning, the Houston Rockets believe that runs like these can occur more frequently. They had their winning streak snapped after a close loss to James Harden and the LA Clippers, but there are multiple positive signs indicating that the Rockets are here to stay. They have been a top 5 defensive rating and allow the 3rd fewest points per game. The defensive identity they wanted to create with Ime Udoka on the sideline and Dillon Brooks on the floor has happened. Their experienced players are producing on the court and guiding their younger teammates off of the court. Their mix of youngsters and veterans have been working just about as well as they could have hoped. This team has already shown more promise of sustained success than at any point during the last 3 seasons, which is why for the first time in what's felt like forever, the Rockets are finally on their way back to NBA relevancy. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.